the Summer Direct has been taking its time since BeatemUps first teased it in the end of June, when nothing happened in the traditional June Nintendo Direct month. Speculation has been rampant, but we have been staying away because we've been waiting for one source to speak. Namely, Nathan Haight, the guy who leaked the first reveal or first look trailer of the Nintendo Switch 2 in January this year. And the reason why we waited is that Nathan Haight has been pretty helpful in the last 2 weeks. He's been denying that there's no Direct this week that I know of. But in his latest podcast, which came up on Monday, July 14th, he made it very clear that the Nintendo Direct is happening in July, just like BeatemUps originally stated, and it will happen after the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza. That will say one of the last 2 weeks of July. That is to say, probably the last week of July, seeing that we have the Pokemon Presents on July 22nd, namely on Tuesday. Of course, there's a possibility that we could have 2 days in a row, maybe on the 23rd or the 24th. Nate didn't want to go more specifically into the day, he just knows that it is July and it is after the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Before the fiscal update and sales numbers update that is happening in the start of August. News to bring to investors, which they haven't been able to do since, of course, the Switch 2 Direct happened right after the new fiscal year started. There's been no other Directs apart from game-specific Directs in between, and in both cases the games are already out. So why did Nintendo wait so long? I think the reason is very simple. It's Donkey Kong Bonanza. They want this game to sell. They don't want any distractions to go away from it. And I think also they wanted to have that time frame from launch to first Direct that we had in 2017. And since the Nintendo Switch 2 launched on June 5th, that means that they would also wait at least until the middle of the month, almost in July, just to allow people to play Mario Kart, to play the different Switch 2 editions of Zelda, allow the third parties, especially Cyberpunk, to have their time, and of course also build up the hype for Donkey Kong Bonanza and allow that game to launch without any interruptions in the way. But after that, it's very empty. Nathan Haight, in the same podcast, also stated that the big third-party developers, and that goes for longtime Nintendo partners like Capcom, Sega, Ubisoft, Namco, and many others, have games that are ready to be announced. And we know that the big third-party releases, like the Cyberpunks, the Witchers, and so on, Nintendo, or Elden Ring for that matter, Nintendo likes to announce them in their own Nintendo Direct. So I would expect many of these to be announced in this Nintendo Direct. One thing Nathan Haight also brought up when talking about third parties and indie developers is that a lot of developers have also not been able to announce any games because they didn't receive dev kits. So what could Nintendo bring to the table? Because we know there's a list of games that are coming out. The thing is that none of them have been dated yet. None of them have gotten release dates. Much like in the case of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but it seems like Nintendo has a lineup. Like August we know is already Dragon Drive, the big mouse or Joy-Con experience game. September is a big opening. Many are saying that it could be Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which personally I think would make a lot of sense. We know that Pokemon is already in October, specifically on October 16th, especially since it is also a dual release, and the Switch 2 version is another Switch 2 edition. It would make sense to just finish up these when it comes to new games and then have full focus on Switch 2 exclusives that are not on Nintendo Switch beginning from November. But yes, Pokemon Legends ZA could thus be the final Switch 2 edition release that is of a brand new game that will also be both coming out to the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Switch 2. Later Switch 2 editions are likely to be older Switch games that are just brought and upgraded for Nintendo Switch 2. Still, there are two other games that are, of course, not Nintendo developed, but which Nintendo has had a heavy impact on, if we are to believe different kinds of sources. First is, of course, Koei Tecmo's Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which we know is coming out this winter. They just said winter, but later on they confirmed 2025. And we know that winter 2025 begins in late November, which is the typical Pokemon time frame, but it seems that Pokemon Legends ZA is coming out in October, so who knows, maybe they will do exactly what they did with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which came in this time frame in 2020. And that leaves us with the final game that was in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, or Nintendo Direct, Nintendo Switch 2, namely Kirby Air Riders, the brand new game and first non-Smash developed game from Masahiro Sakurai since Kid Icarus Uprising. And it is very clear that this game is of very high importance, but it's also a racing game. And with Mario Kart coming out in June, you probably want around half a year between those two releases, so that Kirby Air Riders can come out at a time when people have become a little bit more tired of Mario Kart. A December release of that game would make a lot of sense, as we had a December game also in 2017, that being Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, do I think that in general this Direct, apart from like release date confirmations and new trailers for, say, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Kirby Air Riders, which for the most part was just, a cinematic tease, and of course also Splatoon Raiders, which was announced outside of a Nintendo Direct, but also felt for the most part just like a tease, could get a more solid presence in, of course, this Nintendo Direct. But it also obviously is room for more reveals, and some are saying, oh, maybe we'll see the next 3D Mario game. I think it's way too soon. At the soonest, if we see it, it will be at the start of the Mario anniversary, so in September, and it matches very well with what happened also in 2020 when you think of it, where, of course, there also was no Direct. Instead, there were partner showcases throughout the summer, and then in September we got the Mario Anniversary Direct, and in that was of course the big reveal of 3D All-Stars. Of course, one thing that was missing there was Super Mario Galaxy 2, a game that has also been rumored recently to be revealed, and I wouldn't be surprised if that could be the Mario game that we get for 2025. But it would also maybe get a tease for the next 3D Mario game, which might be a little bit further away, that is to say 2026, but maybe still within the 40th anniversary of Super Mario. The problem that I see though with this notion and this approach is that Nintendo might want to save these reveals for exactly that occasion, so when the 40th anniversary is imminent. Then there's of course the question of Animal Crossing, another game that BeatemUps brought up, and I think the tease of just Isabelle teasing it most likely for 2026, which, keep in mind, would be within the 25th anniversary of Animal Crossing. That year is actually packed with anniversaries, including of The Legend of Zelda and others, but I could see Animal Crossing getting revealed, but I don't think we're gonna see any Zelda reveals here. I think that is being saved for February, so the start of the 40th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, and then when it comes to the next open air Zelda, and the reveal of that one, that could be 1 year away, or maybe a little less, depending if they go back to the June Directs. But summer Directs are... that is the time slot when Nintendo reveals the next open-air Zelda games. So don't expect any new Zelda games to be revealed in this, because we also have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Of course, possibilities that Silksong could get a bigger presence. That game has been confirmed for 2025. It's either this or an indie world around Gamescom. Then there's the question, what is Monolith Soft up to? We have heard that they are hiring recently. A lot is happening on that end, and personally I have a feeling that we could see maybe the reveal of their project, but then of course see 2026. I don't think we see any Monolith Soft games. Additionally, in 2025 we already had Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. If anything, it's just gonna be updates and upgrades. We saw that some games might be getting updates soon, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is the Xenoblade games. It fits, it's 4 games. It's Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, it's Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. And then of course there could be games announced for Nintendo Switch Online, GameCube. I hope Twilight Princess gets a proper re-release, because the GameCube version isn't exactly the version we want of that game. For more on that one, check out our previous upload. I want to hear your opinions on Nathan Hates League. Anyway, if you haven't already, be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell, and with all notifications on. Last but not least, a big thanks to all of you for watching until the end, and to all our patreon.com/CommonRun patrons. Special shoutouts go to Raw Producer, JC Funk, and Heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf, and Kintaro. You all rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.